All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Win with Heather Havenwood. And I'm super excited today to have someone on the line, video and audio, whatnot, is Perry Marshall. Perry, you there?
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Heather.
Yeah, thank you. It's going to be a ton of fun. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about who Perry is. Before that, I'm going to change out my speaker. Okay, Perry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, you can. Okay, hold on a second. Awesome. Okay, so who Perry is, Perry Marshall is endorsed by Forbes Inc. magazine as one of the most expensive business consultants in the world. Clients seek his ability to integrate technology, sales, art, and psychology. He founded the $5 million Evolution 2.0 prize with judges from Harvard, Oxford, and MIT. The prize aims to solve the biggest mystery in biology. Woo-hoo. But what we're going to talk about today is his 80/20 sales and marketing book. This is super hot. So listen up. His 80/20 curve is taught as a productivity tool in NASA, Jet Propulsion Labs in the California Institute of Technology. And the 80/20 sales and marketing is mandatory in many growing companies. And that's what I want to really hone in on today, Perry, is this 80/20 rule that I have now bought the book. I'm going through the process of a book. But before I tell you who he is, I want to tell you what someone else says about him. Marketing maverick Dan Kennedy says, if you don't know who Perry Marshall is, that's just unforgivable. Perry is an honest man in a field rife with charlatans. Woohoo! Love that quote, by the way.
It's good to know from Dan that I'm not a charlatan.
It is very good to know.
Helps me sleep better at night.
It does, yeah. And you and I have learned that we know a lot of people of the same cloth for many years. We know some charlatans. We also know some non-charlatans, I guess. Such a Dan Kennedy word, right? Who thinks of that word?
It's not a common word, but it's kind of fun. It's memorable.
It's memorable, and you are not a charlatan. And if you don't know what a charlatan is, please just look it up. Okay. All right. So let's just talk about who you are a little bit more, and then we're going to dive into the 80/20 principle, right? So just kind of share with us a little bit of who you are and what you're up to now.
So I'm the guy who went to engineering school and was a propeller head, got recruited into Amway when I was 21 by my friend. Now, the reason, let me tell you, I got fired. I got fired from a job for sending a rogue fax. I was working at Grainger, big industrial company. Maybe you've heard of it. And we were feeling mischievous one day, and we sent this fax that said, "Dear branch managers, Grainger stock has suddenly and inexplicably plummeted from $63 a share down to $17 a share. We will be closing all branches effective Friday. We want to thank you for your many years of hard work and dedication, and we will make every effort to meet payroll for the current week."
Are you serious?
I am complete. That is exactly verbatim. That is what the fax said. And we faxed it from Lincoln, Nebraska to Omaha. And we thought that they would think that was funny.
Uh-huh.
And then the phone didn't ring, and like all this time went by, and we were like waiting in silence. And finally we call him up and we go, "So, did you get our fax?" And he goes, "Oh, that was you? Oh, Brenda pulled it off the fax machine, and she went in hysterics, and she started calling her relative. I'm leaving my job after 12 years. And I didn't really know what to think. So we faxed it to Sioux City, and they didn't really know what to think. So they faxed it to Des Moines. And this was my first exposure to electronic viral marketing in 1990.
Wow. Okay. That's really cool. I did my first funnel via fax in 1999, so I understand that.
So I got fired, and this actually really messed me up. Okay. I had been married for 1 year. My wife's dad was a farmer. I remember having to, "Hey, Ron, like, you'll never believe what just happened, you know?" But this really shook me up, and I suddenly realized, like, hey, man, like you rubbed somebody the wrong way. And I realize how completely stupid that was. I get it. Okay. But like, yeah, you rubbed somebody the wrong way. Like, you know, it's over. And so I got into Amway, you know, and then like, I just bumbled around doing that, and I'm recruiting people, and like, I was so scared.
Okay,
And
so every entrepreneur, I think, should try MLM. They should all become waiters and waitresses at least once, and they should all try to make an MLM company work, right?
well, they'll certainly be thankful for whatever they do after that.
Exactly. They will always be thankful, like, wow, as long as it's not that, right?
I still have dreams. About once every 4 months, I have a dream
The circles?
that I am in Amway and I have to get these people.
You have to get these people, like, you have to write the circles on the board, like the circles and the different, like, I've been there. So I'm reminiscing. And, Dan Kennedy started, I mean, you don't have that same teacher back, he's just the king of it, but he started in MLM. I don't know if people know that, but he did.
That is true. And so that's entrepreneurial junior college, and cut your teeth and you put on a dark coat, white shirt, red tie, you look presentable. Okay. So I did that. Well, then I got laid off from my engineering job, and my wife was 3 months pregnant, and I ended up going into sales. And then I got 2 years of bologna sandwiches and ramen soup doing that. Okay. And it was actually at the end of that, just before I got fired from that job, I discovered Dan Kennedy, actually. I went to one of those big seminars, and I bought the thing, and I'm like, dang, like this could actually work. And I discovered copywriting and everything. And so 80/20 Sales and Marketing is actually the marketing book I wish I had in 1995 when I got fired from my job with my wife 3 months pregnant, and bologna sandwiches and ramen soup and baked potatoes and salsa and other forms of cheap nutrition that broke people, who scraped 59 cents out of their car to buy a Taco Bell.
I have been there. Like, I got $1. I could get some McDonald's. I've been there.
Oh my goodness.
So been there. But let's talk about 80/20. I mean, there's a whole principle behind that. So there's a couple things I want to make sure people understand. Like, there's 80/20 the book, and there's a person. I want you to talk about that. And then you co-wrote the book, this 80/20 marketing book with him. So can you kind of bring people up into speed on that story?
Yeah. So there's a classic book called The 80/20 Principle by Richard Koch. And Richard wrote this book 20 years ago. And I read this book. And when I read it, he made this throwaway comment on page 14. He never came back to. And he made this comment. He said, 80/20 has a lot to do with fractals and chaos, which is this very propeller head thing. But as soon as he said, I'm like, oh, hold on a second. I know something about that. Wait a minute. If that's true, which I don't have time to explain that, okay? But if that's true, there's an 80/20 inside every 80/20. Wait a minute.
All right, we're gonna.
That would mean so 80/20 means that 20% of your customers give you 80% of your business. But what it seemed to possibly mean was that 20% of the customers gave you 80% of the 80% of the business, and then 20% of the 20 of the 20 would give you 80 of the 80 of the 80, and it starts ramping up, and the levers start getting huge. So that would mean that 1% of your customers are giving you 50% of your money. And I ran home and I was like, is this true? And I get out all these spreadsheets and papers and everything, and I'm like, oh my word, this is absolutely true.
Wow.
And I realized that this is actually true, like all across the whole world. Mm-hmm. Like how much traffic is driving on the streets like you're in Austin, I'm in Chicago, or we could be in rural Nebraska. No matter where you go, 80% of the traffic is on 20% of the roads, and 80% of the 80% of the traffic is on 20% of the 20%. So that in any field, any endeavor, anything that you do, there's these tiny levers that swing huge doors.
Yeah.
And that there's vast amounts of effort that basically make no difference at all. That most of us are wasting 85, 90% of our time doing things that don't make any difference at all, and we're not conscious of it. And what this is really about is being conscious of where the levers are. Okay, so now this is hard to see if you're on salary, if you get paid hourly, but let's say you're in commission or you're an entrepreneur or you just get paid for results. You know what? It's 2018 now. In 2017, half your money came from 3 days of work.
Well, let's just do that for 2018.
Well, right. Now,
right?
if you go back, seriously, if you go back and you carefully look at 2017, you might want to, you go, okay, what actually made the money? What actually moved the needle? And I'm especially talking about profit. Okay. More so than just sales. If you actually look at profit and margin and like putting money in your pocket, literally half of your money you actually made in about 3 days or a week, maybe a week. And maybe it was 20 minutes here and 10 minutes there and 3 hours here and an hour there. But like you could there, it might be scattered throughout the year, but it's like, okay, that one negotiation with that one person or that one phone call to that one or that one referral I got actually was almost everything. And most people are not aware. But when you know that no matter what I do next year, no matter what I do last year, that the 80-20 rule was true. Yeah. It will change what you focus on because, this is Warren Buffett's got the same number of hours as me and you.
Warren Buffett has more money than me. I just have to say that.
Me too, Heather.
Thank you. You are the same boat as me because it's got a lot more money than me.
So inferior.
He's got the same number of hours than me, right? How did that happen? So anyway, yeah, I just have to. But this is fascinating to me. I want to move it to one area though of life that you and I. By the way, this is the second interview. The first one didn't record, so I kind of am bringing from our last interview. I really love when we were talking about this 80-20 rule. I want to take it out of business for just a second because I think it's good to it out of a different world, right? And that is in politics. When we talked about the 2016 election.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And we talked about how Bernie Sanders kind of revolutionized the conversation around politics because he got all this money from what I call the small amount, 27. I think the average $27 per donor. Yes. Right. And it blew this whole conversation away. It has to be these big donors with big checks, And then you said something really interesting about that. I wanted to. Yeah.
So if Bernie got let's say Bernie got 5 million people to give him $5.
Yeah.
80-20 says that 20% of the people would give him 4 times the money. So 1.25 million people would give him $20, and right. And then a fifth of those people would give him $80, and a fifth of those people would give him $400, and it just keeps going up and up and up. And what we talked about was that as far as I can tell, Bernie had the grassroots support to raise that money at that level, but my very strong hunch is that Hillary had the staff to take advantage of the top end of the 80-20 curve to get the big donors because that's where the money is. So if you actually map this out, there's a certain amount of money at $5, and there's a similar more amount of money at 50, and then there's another similar level at 500. In other words, if you got 5 million from these guys, then there's 5 million more here, there's 5 million more here. But he didn't have the infrastructure to go up the ladder.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying. So you're saying, hey, he was able to get what you call the 80%.
Yes.
Money. And then Hillary was going after the 20, so the 80-20 conversation.
Right. So Hillary ends up with 4 times more money.
She did, but
than Bernie.
So she went after the 20% and he went after the 80. It was still significant in the world of that, but what you're saying is she had the power to go after the top 20 and not even worry about this, and he went after the 80. And it was, the numbers are huge significance. I mean, she I think it was her numbers were just out of control. But
yes, and going after big donors, it's expensive, it's difficult, it requires lots of schmoozing and banquets and all this kind of stuff.
So would you say that's kind of true in business? So taking that same principle, that going after the 20% that's going to make you the most money, the 80%, you think it's more expensive to go after those 20% clients?
It is. It is. But the thing is if you sold to the lower level, it's there, right? So like, in other words, if you had 5 million people give you any amount of money, then the potential for high donations is already in that group. You don't need some other group of people, but you have to mine the coal mine that, or the gold mine that you already do have, right? And this is what most people do, is they don't drill down, and they also don't create the experience that a VIP customer really wants, because the VIP customer doesn't want bologna sandwiches, right?
No.
They want sushi or caviar or something. So
I see what you're saying. So wait, okay, I'm going to say a different language. I'm just going to say what you said, but I'm going to just reframe it. So basically the pool, right? It's 100%, 20% of the people, of your clients, 100%, 20% are giving you 80% of the money. But to get to just focus on the 20%, it takes more effort, not only more money, more effort to dig down and find that 20% to then kind of exploit that to make more money.
Yeah. And it takes more pizzazz.
More pizzazz,
and it takes a better offer, right? Like
better offer. Oh, that's great. Better experience. Right.
So I call it it's the principle of the $2,700 espresso machine. So in 80/20 sales and marketing, I actually have this little software tool that you can use, and you can predict pricing levels. And so you can,
that's cool.
You can plug in a number. You could say, I got 1,000 people a week coming to Starbucks and buying $5 lattes. The tool will tell you, okay, that's $5,000, right? 1,000 times 5. Yeah, I'm doing that. Well, out of that 1,000 people, I guarantee you one of them will spend $2,700 on a gleaming, shiny stainless steel espresso machine. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, wow, one of those people will write a check for $2,700. Yes, they will, and they want to, and it's burning a hole in their pocket. And they have a $2,700 caffeine addiction. It's waiting to go somewhere. And if you have something to sell them, then you'll get that $2,700. Now, and of course, there's the people below that level and two levels below, which means there's actually probably 4 times more money than just those espressos. Mm-hmm. But most coffee shops, like if you go to Seattle where there's like lots of coffee shops, or Austin, I'm sure. Yes, tons here. Most of those coffee shops, they don't have a $2,700 espresso machine. No. They don't have a way to spend $500, so they're all starving. Right. I mean, it's actually probably the case. You could think of it like Starbucks makes all their money just on the espresso machines, and everything else just keeps the lights on. That you can literally think of, if you wish, that's really how the business is working.
So, okay, so I'm looking at numbers. Okay, you have 1,000 people, right? 1,000 people, and I'm doing 20% of that. That's obviously 200 people. So what do you think, just taking your scenario here, taking that scenario, what, and everyone, the 1,000 people giving $5 of the 20%, which is 200, what are they buying usually?
So the 200 will spend, they'll buy something for $20. So maybe they'll buy one of those really cool mugs. Yeah. That are kind of overpriced, right?
All right. They're totally overpriced.
Okay. 20% of them will spend $80. Okay. So what do they sell at Starbucks that's $80? They might buy a pack of CDs, or they might buy this, they might buy a whole bunch of bags of coffee grounds or something, right?
That's 40 people. So that of the 200, 20% of the 200, which is 40, is going to buy something in the $80 range. That's what you're saying. So that's what you mean by the 80/20 is inside the 80/20 inside the 80/20.
Right. And it just keeps going up.
Going. And you have a software to do this? This is super kind of cool.
It's scary how predictable this is. I mean, in fact, if your audience doesn't do what the software says it'll do, it means your offer is wrong. It means, so like if you had the $97 product and then you offered the $9,997 product and you didn't get, a particular percentage to take it, it means that there was something about your $10,000 super shindig cruise, party thing, whatever it was, that was off.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't like the rapper that you hired to come and crash the party or something, right? But really, it's scary. In math, they call this an attractor. But if you know what the attractors are, like even the math people talk about the law of attraction. You can actually like quantify it and put it on a spreadsheet.
So let me ask you a question. So I'm thinking about cars here, because cars are a great example of the different diverse price points, I think.
Yes.
Right?
Sure.
You have Bentleys, you got Lamborghinis. I don't know what the highest price is. I'm sure there's one that, $1.2 million car. There's Bentley. What was a Bentley? 200,000. I'm kind of guessing. I don't really know.
Yeah.
No, and then you have the different Lexuses, and then you have the different Mercedes, right? And they try to do a wide spectrum. Like a Mercedes, for example, has the lower end, like a 30,000 kind of entry level, and then of course they go all the way up to whatever. Yeah. So I'm curious. It's kind of, I guess my question. I don't have a question. My question is, are they using the same principle? But I look at like Bentley, right? They only do high end like that. How do they know they're going to be able to make sales?
Well, so first off, you just have to know that if you look at all of the people spending money on cars, it's absolutely going to be 80-20. That 20% of the cars cost 80% of the money, and 20% of the cars cost 80% of the money, 80% of the. So that is absolutely true.
Okay.
Right? And so what that means is that Bentley is, it's just this one vehicle, but they actually get a disproportionate amount of money compared to the number of cars that they sell.
Right.
So you have Lamborghini and Lotus and, these super high-end companies, and they don't make very many cars at all, but they get exorbitant amounts of money for them. Right now, where it gets more generally applicable is if you look at a company like Toyota, has Toyota and they have Lexus, right?
Right.
Because nobody wants to buy a $300,000 Chevrolet, right?
Right. That's true. Yeah.
So that's a branding issue, right? But this is why you'll have Chevrolet and Buick and Cadillac all owned by General Motors is because they're taking advantage of the 80-20 structure, the attractors that are out there.
That makes sense. Okay. That completely makes sense. So this reminds me of Dan Kinney. One time he was talking about how he calls it the force. I'm paraphrasing. He was on stage and he was like, the force funnel's stupid or something like that.
Okay.
What he was trying to point out was that if you have a large price point product, like a mastermind at 30,000, okay, why are you forcing your customer to buy the low price one before they buy, like a forced funnel? They were like forcing them down this funnel versus just jumping. And I remember Ryan Dice was in the room for whatever reason. And he goes, yeah, I didn't buy any of that other stuff. I just bought your highest product. I didn't even I buy your other stuff later. You know what I mean? And I think it was in an interesting perspective. And nowadays, where there's constantly funnels, got to buy my $7 book before I can offer you the $900 product. So I'm like, dude, what if I don't want your book? I just want the $900 product. Why are you forcing me to buy your damn book?
Right.
You know what I mean? So my point is, there is a point where it's like using the theory here to say, why are you forcing? It's almost like saying, if someone has the money for a Bentley, or even a high-end Lexus, and no, you have to buy the low-end Toyota first.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you come back and choose, then we'll allow you to get the lower-end Lexus, and then we'll allow you to why would, just like people jump to where they want.
That's right. Well, I had this conversation today with a guy. Let's just say that he sells golf. Okay. And yeah, it was exact, like there's the $49 product, but then there's the $2,000 fly and go do a workshop. And I told him, well, don't force people through that one. At the very least, you need to make them, no, I actually just want to come to the workshop in Phoenix.
Right.
Right. And they need to know, and 1 or 2% of people will jump all the way to the top. Right. And so you could add, so somebody can go add a button to their website and
just ask more money. Yeah, that's a really good point. I know I'm thinking myself of events and seminars I've been to where I just go to the highest level And then usually how that works is they have other products or services or books. They just like throw those in to the VIP.
Yes, exactly.
Right? I'd rather just do that than have been forced down the funnel where I bought all this stuff and then I get to the VIP and all that's included. I'm like, what?
Right.
You know, so the point is, I think just listening, you have to have a wide variety. And going back to Dan Kennedy, he's got, you can buy Dan Kennedy at $7.95 if you want to on Amazon. You can also buy, I don't even know his fees anymore, $100,000 or what and beyond, a seminar at $2,000, you can have all these different fees. So here's what I guess my question to you is, taking all this theory and proving that it works, and you've proven that, and I highly suggest you go get the book, 80/20 Marketing, go on Amazon and get it now. How can people use this? So what's the point of the theory? How can we use this?
Well, so it's for 80/20 is going to happen to you no matter what, but if you are conscious of it. So, for example, 80% of the product defect problems come from 20% of the product defects, right? So that means it means you don't have to fix everything. It means you don't have to be a perfectionist. It means that, okay, you got these warranty returns and that if you look at the cause behind the cause behind the cause, you're going to come down to, there's this one screw in the car engine that's wearing out. So if we fix that problem, then that whole entire problem goes away. And we could spend the rest of our life fixing 100 problems, but actually we can take care of almost all the symptoms with just 20% of these problems, and then we're done. Or here's another huge one. 20% of your customers are almost certainly losing you money. And if it's not 20%, it's 10%. I bet you anything, 10% of your customers actually lose you money, not make money. If you fire them, I gave a speech to a whole room full of CPAs a couple years ago. And I said, how many of you have that tax preparation client where they're all over you and they're sending and the shoebox full of receipts and they send you 17,000 emails? How many of you have that client? And they all raise their hand. And how many, you don't make any money off this person? And they all raise their hand and they're like nodding, like, yes. I said, Perry Marshall, best-selling author, blah, blah, blah. I said, I bequeath you permission to fire these people. Okay, you don't have to be mean. Don't be nothing like that. But you could just send them a letter and it could say, my business partner and I, that's your wife, we're discussing the direction of our business, and we realize there's just certain accounts we can't service anymore, and we're moving in a different direction. And so we're going to hand you off to this other CPA firm, and we'll give you all your shoe boxes full of receipts and everything. And you just gave yourself a raise. Your revenue went down, your income went up, your headaches went down, your time went down. You go play baseball with your kid instead of futzing around with this one guy's income taxes. And this is true of everybody. 10% of your product line. If you have a big product line, you're losing money on 10% of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious. Did they do it? Did anybody do it? Do you know?
Oh yeah. And I have I run this program called 30-Day Reboot, and I don't know, maybe on day 13, it was like, okay, today you are going to fire a client. You know who they are. You need to do this. You're gonna drop the axe today. I had what happened? In fact, there was another one. It was like a different day. Toxic person. You have to get rid of a toxic person in your life. So I get this video from this lady, and she took the scissors and she was symbolically doing this thing, cutting up with scissors. She goes, I kicked my husband out of the house today. And I told him we're getting a divorce because you won't deal with your porn addiction and you won't deal with your abusive behavior, and I've had enough. Now, if you know Perry Marshall, I am the last guy to be telling people to get divorces. I have 6 kids. I'm a family guy. I agree. Yeah. She needed to get rid of that guy, and she should have done it 4 years ago. Yep. And she was an enabler, and we don't even have to go into all that because I think everybody knows what that is.
That's so. But you so free up. It's like when people. I mean, I've gone through my closets. I just had a big breakup, so I understand that concept of detaching and releasing. But there's a whole other level to when you have this paying client, and you're in a business and you're like, I don't want to let go of that client,
Right.
So my question to you is from an 80-20 theory rule. What is this? What is the, what, I don't know, mathematical, what's going to happen mathematically if you do release or do let go of a money client that is paying you? What happens?
Okay. 80% of your problems come from 20% of your clients.
Okay. That's
like the headaches.
The headache.
And it's not necessarily the same ones that are making you the profit. Now, probably half of your headaches come from profitable clients, probably. But the other half of your headaches come from unprofitable clients. But if you're not aware that it's almost a law of nature that this is going to be the case, you never go looking for it. And you don't realize, okay, so I got these super profitable, most people have super profitable clients that almost never say anything. They almost never bug you. They, like the purchase order just comes in every now and then and it's big and they don't need any maintenance, right? Okay, so how about a little more TLC, or go investigate those guys a little more and find out what else they need, right? They're not the squeaky wheel, and then this other one, get rid of them.
Get rid of them.
And if you're constantly working both ends of that, you'd be amazed.
Yeah.
Like if there's a downturn and your revenue drops 25%, there's almost certainly cost cutting where we got 70% of the cost cutting, but we only paid a 30% penalty in what we get out of the situation. So we actually got our bills down to manageable. Even though the revenue's down and even though the profits are down, we're all paying our bills. We're not, credit card balances aren't going up. Everything's under control. It's actually possible.
I love that. Wow. Okay, I'm going to go do that. I'm thinking of who I can fire.
So you can use 80-20 to grow a business.
Okay.
Use 80-20 to shrink a business and make it more profitable or make the losses go away. You can use it both directions.
So a little bit, I'm just going to wrap here in just a second. We went 4 or 5 minutes, but in the 80-20 rule specifically on marketing, the sales and marketing principle, when you wrote the book with was it Rob, correct?
Well, Richard. Oh, well, Rob's the gambling guy. Maybe you want to hear that story?
Yeah, let's hear that story. That's
okay. This is my favorite 80-20 story. So my friend John Paul Mendoza, he was 17 years old, going to high school in Las Vegas. He dropped out of high school and hitchhiked to Vegas. And he became a professional gambler because he thought that would be really cool. And so he's living by his wits. He's got a fake ID. He's living in Vegas. And after a while, he's like, dang, this is kind of harder than I thought it was.
Yeah, right. It's hard.
And he runs into this guy named Rob. And Rob is he's an organizer of professional gambling ring. Okay. And various and sundry other businesses.
Oh, I'm sure they're all legal. Right.
Yeah. All right. And they get to talking and John's like, do you think you could teach me how to do this? And Rob goes, for a percentage of your winnings, I could help you do this. And so they shake on it. Okay. It's a deal. So as soon as they're done shaking hands, Rob goes, jump in the Jeep, John, we're going for a ride. And so jumps in the Jeep and we're going down the highway. And John says, all right, how do I win more poker games? And Rob says, the way you win more poker games is you find people who are going to lose. They don't know how to play poker, and they are called marks. Okay? You want to play with the marks. You don't want to play with the other professional gamblers. Okay, John? And John goes, okay, so where do I find marks? And he goes, here, I'll show you. And he pulls into a parking lot, and he walks him into a strip club. And there's naked women, and there's rock and roll, and there's drinking, and there's bikers, and there's people yelling, and it's noisy, and lots of distractions, okay? And he sits John down at the table, and Rob always carried a sawed-off shotgun everywhere he went in his jacket. And he pulls a sawed-off shotgun out of his jacket, and he holds it under the table, and he opens the chamber, and he snaps it shut. He goes, ch-ch. And that's called racking the shotgun.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I'm very familiar with that noise. It's like, whoa, scary.
Okay, well, there's people in this club, they are familiar with that noise, even with 110 decibels of music, right? And they're like, Who did that, right? These
Right.
badass guys looking around. And the club owner comes over to the table and he goes, is everything okay here, Rob? And Rob's like, everything's fine. I'm just teaching the lad a lesson. Don't worry about us. And he goes, John, did you see those biker dudes who turned around when they heard that noise? And John goes, yeah. And he says, don't play poker with them. They're not marks. You play poker with everybody else. Okay. Now that was a classic lesson in 80-20.
I love that.
80-20 is rack the shotgun. And anything you do in marketing is rack the shotgun. Donald Trump racks the shotgun all the time.
Oh my God.
All the time, right? Hillary racked the shotgun all the time. Everything she said polarized an audience. They either love her or hate her. You go look at her book on Amazon. It's like 3 stars. It's all 5 stars. It's all 1 stars. There's no 3-star reviews of Hillary's book.
No, it's all 1 or 5. It's like love, 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 hate, 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 hate.
Great marketers polarize audiences. That racking that shotgun is like, okay, so all the guys from Wichita that got their grandmother's inheritance money, they don't know that sound and they're oblivious. You go play poker with them, right? Oh, you want to do a skeet shooting retreat out in the desert? Oh, you want to sell drugs? Go get all those guys that heard that noise and heard that sound. You go get them and they would be perfect for that. But you're dividing the audience. Like who's in, who's out, right? And then you forget about the people who are out and you focus on the people that are in. You go, all right, so let's rack the shotgun again. And let's get the top 20% of the top 20% of, the dumbest guys in the room to play poker with who have the most money, right? Or the most badass bikers in the room that want to sell the most drugs.
Right.
Of course, this is a harsh,
it's an analogy. It's an analogy that people I can understand. But I imagine I'm thinking of a movie called Molly's Game. It came out in Christmas 2017 here recently, and it's about poker games. Okay, and I remember a specific scene where she's talking about how there's this one player, he keeps losing, but because he keeps losing, it's attracting all of these poker players. And she keeps telling him, like, I think you need to stop. And he's like, no, it's going to happen. It's going to happen for me. And it was like, what's that old saying? There's like a bleeding fish. The sharks come out, Right. So she was running the game. So she was kind of shook, she didn't know what to do because even though he's losing his butt, all these big players were coming in, because they're like, oh, we heard there's some blood here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I never really understood that scene until now when you're saying a poker player plays with, the marks.
Yes. So she was racking the shotgun.
Yeah. And the good players were, I smell some marks and there's some money here. And they took all his money, So, and it happened twice while she was in the movie. It's called the Molly's Game. Highly suggest it because it's exactly what you're talking about. And she also talks about how out of all her players, there's only about 20% that really she makes the money from. The rest of them pretty much lose all their money to the 20%, So it's interesting.
Everything you do in marketing is rack the shotgun. Bid on a keyword. So who clicks on the ad? Who opens the email? Who clicks on the email? Who signs up for the webinar? Who listens to the podcast? It's all racking the shotgun.
Racking the shotgun. As a Texan. So where can people find you? Where can they say, I want to work with you? Where can they just hang out with you? Where can they find you?
You can go to perrymarshall.com, and if you want to see an 80-20 sales funnel in action, just click on the 80-20 link. We actually sell the book for $7, including shipping in the United States, as opposed to $18 on Amazon. And when you go there, you'll actually get to see how does our upsell funnel work and what happens next and what happens next. And it's very choreographed and it's very well engineered, and you can learn a lot from it. So go to perrymarshall.com and click on the 80-20 link and see where the rabbit hole leads you.
I'm on it right now. Looks pretty cool. I'm going to go jump down the rabbit hole. Perry, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for being on the Win, and thanks for doing this again. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be on your show. It's an honor, and glad we could meet each other. This is really fun.
Absolutely. All right, guys, this is Heather Havenwood with The Win. Go check out Perry Marshall at Perry Marshall, MarshallL.com. All right, everyone, this is Heather Havenwood with The Win. Till next time.